Hello! In a small Indian town, a series of terrible crimes occur. The killer leaves terrible injuries on the bodies, but each time the victim turns out to be people with tainted karma. So the villagers begin to talk about a giant snake that brings justice. Detective Vikram sets out to find the murderer, but instead discovers a strange mute girl and a wealthy American who longs to find the immortality stone. To unravel this strange story and solve his family problems, the policeman will have to turn to the old Indian legends. In the jungles of ancient India, a snake hunter has found his prey. He ruthlessly slays it, performing a bloody summoning ritual. According to the legend, the huge cobra, the goddess of fertility, carries the immortality stone Nagamani in her body, and she will come to avenge her children.
Of the vengeance you would bring onto both guilty and innocent.
A huge shadow looms over the hunter. The goddess severely punishes the offender, and the man who witnessed the retribution runs as fast as he can across the fields and jungles, catching up with his tribe, and falls into the arms of his father. He can only utter the name of the goddess, Nagin, when suddenly the pregnant women of the tribe begin to lose their unborn children. 4 millennia later, in modern times, a man unceremoniously relieves himself over the heads of his jungle guides.
I may have brain cancer, but I can still piss like a racehorse.
It's the head of the expedition, George States, who wants to capture the legendary creature. His plan is to trap the male snake, and then she, the goddess who possesses the coveted stone, will come for him in human form. George has stage 3 brain cancer, which comes with terrible headaches, so facing Nagin doesn't scare him anymore. The team goes deep into the jungle, where they find 2 mating snakes. States commands them to capture the male one, but the guards are too afraid of the goddess's revenge, so he stabs one of them and threatens to put a bullet in the other's back. The man asks the American not to shoot, as it will scare away the snakes. Choosing between death and Nagina's fury, he decides for the latter.
Oh, Nagina, please forgive me. I really don't want to do this.
The serpent is captured. The female glares at George, memorizing his face. The guide can't take it anymore and panics, sending himself to the afterlife, not wishing to find out what the fearsome cobra will do to him and his family. Later in the temple, the 3 priests pray to the statue of Nagin, anticipating her appearance. And at night in the jungle, the snake transforms, taking the form of a woman. In the morning, police officer Vikram is going to work. Through the window, he sees that a festival of colors is taking place and asks his wife Maya to promise that their children will not participate in such dubious festivities. But the pregnant woman does not listen. She discovers that she's bleeding and realizes that she has lost the baby. Her husband assures her that he loves her more than life, and they will continue to attempt to have a child. His mother-in-law, Maji, who lives with him, sees her son-in-law off to work while accusing him of being a bad husband and no longer as handsome as he was when he was young.
Don't you have a mirror? Now look at you. Do you ever look into a mirror?
Maji, I'm your son-in-law.
And in the forest, Nagin completes her transformation and becomes a young woman. She finds a bird's nest and eats the eggs, swallowing them whole. Naked, she sees girls swimming in the river and steals their clothes. Meanwhile, States is learning to use a night vision device that will help him in his fight with the cobra. In the basement, he guards the snake's terrarium day and night to make sure he doesn't miss the goddess's visit. His patience is running out. Nagin moves along the river and comes out to the outskirts of town. She sees the festival of colors and walks into a crowd of people drinking and dancing. A snake charmer plays his pipe, and Nagin uncontrollably dances to the sound of the flute. 2 men notice her unearthly beauty and try to seduce her. The girl says nothing, but they manage to lure her into the house, where they begin to brazenly molest her. The mute Nagin screams and tries to cower in a corner. Only the snake charmer, who witnesses this, escapes, recognizing a goddess in the girl. While the 2 scoundrels argue with each other, Nagin removes her human skin behind their back and transforms into a giant cobra, piercing the offenders with her fangs. Vikram, having spent the day cleaning up the aftermath of the holiday in the form of bullies and drunks, returns from work to his family for dinner.
The plate is ready.
She is much too fat. Don't give her food.
At night, he has a nightmare about a snake woman, and Nagin, who has already digested the attackers and is once again in the guise of a young woman, crawls up a lamppost and falls asleep on it. In the morning, a random passerby finds her in only a blanket under a tree and calls the police. Vikram meets the mute Nagin and offers her tea, while he calls his wife to help him with clothes for the woman. The goddess notices the portraits on the bulletin wall. They feature the guides who stole her fiancé. She remembers from the meeting in the jungle. She tears off the photo and faints. While Maya is getting to the station, Vikram investigates the scene of last night's crime. Everyone is surprised by the aftermath of the giant cobra attack, and nobody understands who could have caused such injuries. At the pathologist's office, the police officers examine the mutilated remains of a man, and among them turns up a ringing cell phone. A young boy, Nagin, arrives at the examination and announces that he is Vikram's new partner. The detective welcomes him coldly and leaves. Maya helps Nagin put on a sari while she explores the mirror with the curiosity of a child. Meanwhile, the girl's mother prays to the statue of the very same crawling goddess of fertility.
I don't wish to have such a long life. Just bless me with a grandson or a granddaughter.
Her son-in-law worries that she might start a fire with all the candlelit rituals, but the prayers reach Nagin, who is sleeping in a shelter for homeless women. In bed, Vikram tells his wife that he's not able to relax because of the recent terrible crimes and their inexplicable nature. It's as if one of the men was swallowed and then spit out. Behind the door, the ubiquitous Maji overhears the conversation, and in the shelter, with the connivance of the mistress, crimes occur. A man, Umar, abuses the girls. Nagin hears the screams, and her vengeance follows soon after. An assistant approaches States and introduces him to his acquaintance, Danish, the snake charmer from the festival. For money, he is willing to tell him about what he has witnessed. Upon seeing the serpent, Danish flees the cellar in fear, warning the guards that Nagin will come after them. They ignore his advice. Meanwhile, in a village not far from the jungle, the guide who had run away from States goes mad and attacks his wife and children. They are saved from the beating by yet another attack of the giant cobra. In the morning, Nagin tries to prove to his senior partner that some strange forces are involved in the murders, because no man could have collected so much snake venom and injected it into the victims.
You're very intelligent. Sir, to find so much poison in a body, I mean, it's unbelievable, sir.
George's mercenaries gossip about why he needs the snake. Some decide to quit, and those who do not believe in any of the ancient gods stay. For them, money is paramount. The detectives arrive at yet another crime scene, which is already full of journalists. The children of the murdered guide say they saw a huge snake. The skeptical victim suggests that they're just covering for the mother who is protecting the family from the tyrant. Nagin sees the wounds left on the body and is inclined to believe the witness's testimony. Vikram mockingly asks if the boy is using illegal substances.
Sir, I'm Captain Singh's nephew from Chennai. He once did you a great favor.
It turns out that an old friend of Vikram's died of cancer and left the detective's address to his nephew at his deathbed. This changes the man's attitude, and he begins to trust the guy more. As Nagin arrives at the temple, where the priests help her get rid of her old skin, new corpses are found in the woman's shelter, the mistress and the rapist, with the already familiar wounds on their bodies. The women at the shelter claim to have been saved by a snake goddess. The detective learns from Maya's call that the girl from the station has disappeared without a trace. George can no longer wait for the snake to arrive. The man continues to suffer from migraine attacks, while his assistant prays that Nagin's vengeance will not reach him. The goddess, in turn, is moving through the night city and hides in a large clay vessel. She is now dressed in black. The television broadcasts a story of Nagin, a serpent who takes revenge on those who have tainted their karma, so viewers can save themselves and pray at the temple before it's too late. The goddess chooses the cowardly charmer Danish as her next victim, but the man manages to spot her approaching in the movie theater and dash out of there. The man flees through the crowded fish market, and the goddess follows him over the rooftops. Vikram happens to be nearby and calls for his partner to catch and interrogate Danish. The chase ends with the man being hit by a car. Vikram and Nagin try to resuscitate the injured man, but all efforts are in vain. Danish is dead, and among the crowd, the detective notices familiar eyes. However, the girl in black quickly hides from his gaze. In the car, on the way to dinner with Vikram's family, Nagin asks if his partner has children.
I have a mother-in-law. She's no less than a child. In fact, she's a big baby.
At the table, Maya tells them that her deceased Uncle Singh brought her and her husband together, hence the favor mentioned by the partner. The mother-in-law is very sympathetic to the young, handsome Nagin, and thinks the news about the snake and the boy's appearance is a good sign. That night, the couple once again attempts to conceive a child. In the morning, the mother-in-law wakes up her son-in-law and tells him that she watched the snake show on TV, in which they talked about a stone of immortality and a bad man with cancer who had captured the snake goddess's beloved. She orders him to dress well and go to the abandoned mill behind the crematorium. The woman leaves, and Vikram suddenly realizes that it was a vision.
Amma. She's gone.
The night before her death, Maji told her daughter that she will become a grandmother soon. Meanwhile, States sees that the serpent is sick with something and can barely move. He grabs the snake droppings and smears them on his assistant, ordering him to run so that Nagin could smell it. He has another headache and kills one of his mercenaries, then shoots at the fleeing one and wounds him in the leg. The cunning snake, however, takes advantage of the fact that it was thought to be close to death and gets out of the terrarium. It doesn't crawl away. Vikram goes to work, lighting a ritual candle on the altar of the snake goddess. The goddess herself finds the wounded assistant, but leaves him be. Instead, following the trail and locating the place where her lover is imprisoned, Nagin gets rid of the guards and picks up the serpent. States discovers his slain accomplices. While Vikram and Nagin are hurrying to the mill, Nagin entwines with the serpent in a mating ritual in the same basement where she found him. George goes down there in a special suit that hides his heat signature, turns off the lights, and puts on music that dulls the snake's hearing. He catches the girl in a net and suspends her above the ground, demanding she hand over the stone. He shoots her in the arm. At that moment, the policemen appear and order the criminal to drop his weapon. The villain manages to wound Nagin, for which Vikram shoots the rival in retaliation. The detective releases Nagin from the net. But at the same time, States breaks free from the grip and shoots Nagin in the stomach. Cobra mourns her fiancé, while the young partner dies in Vikram's arms. Enraged, the man lunges at the American to exact revenge, but is stopped by Nagin, who is already half turned into a snake. She grabs George herself and puts him in the terrarium, where the man gets electrocuted by the mechanism with which he controlled the captive snake. The ruthless villain dies in the glass box. 9 months later, Maya gives birth to a child, and little snakes hatch from the eggs laid by Nagin. As always, look for the name of the movie in the description of the video. In the meantime, let us know in the comments, do you know any other Indian horror movies? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video so more awesome stories come out as often as possible.